Welcome, everyone, to the captive audience. It is the 8th of July, and we are very fortunate to have with us tonight a special guest, Representative Virgil Osborne. He is from District 2, which is Roseburg and quite a bit of the Umpqua National Forest. Did I kind of capture that accurately in one felled swoop? Because I'm sure you could provide even more detail for folks that want to kind of figure out where your district is. Welcome to the show, by the way.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. You're right. District 2, House District 2 is primarily Douglas County with a little bit of the coast cut off and a little bit of the northern part of the county cut off. But yeah, I literally go I have, well, Douglas County is 5,000 square miles, and that's if it was flat. And it's not. Everybody that's visited our forest knows, it's not even close to flat. So who knows how many miles it really is. But I go all the way to the boundary of Crater Lake Park and then all the way over to Elkton and then all the way up to, let's see, what is it? Rice Hill, I think, is where the county boundary is, and then clear down to Tiller. So takes a minute to get from one side to the other, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's sizable. It's got obviously a significant chunk of forest. I know we'll probably be talking about that here tonight because that's a major issue as we head into what is often described as inevitable wildfire season, which we wish it weren't. But it's you guys just came off of a very strange state legislative session, one that from the ones I've seen, it rarely has ended quite like that.
I mean, it's my third session. I had one long session, one short session, and this is my second long session. I think we as Republicans went into this session fully knowing we were going to get kicked around and bullied and beat up, and ultimately there were 4,000 bills that we were looking at that we were, supposed to pass. A lot of them were, well, I'd say the majority of them were special interest. I don't have the final numbers on how many were Republican bills, but the amount of Republican bills that actually make it through are generally somewhere in the 20 to 30% range, and I'd say this session was probably closer to 20%. The larger part of the bills were Democrat-sponsored bills, and then our governor is the best legislator in the state. She was behind so many committee bills it wasn't even funny, and it's funny because she sits there and you don't even know that she's the one that's pushing these things, and bam, it was committee bill. Well, who was pushing that? Well, that was the governor.
Yeah.
Some of them were just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, one of the bills that failed was a bill to make it so that there weren't so many bills in the future, and even that didn't make it right.
Yeah, that's a tough one to support. I mean, part of our caucus and myself included, we're like, wow, that would be great if we could limit the bills. I think the limit was like 20 per legislator, and there were some special things. The governor, of course, wouldn't have there was no limits on committee bills, so she could push as many committee bills as she wanted. But ultimately, in the end, I think what the intent of the Democrat Party was is to limit the Republican voice, and if they can kill these bills and kill a reason for us to even be there, they would be happy to do it. And we didn't support it, and ultimately, I think it died in committee.
Yeah, it deserved to die. Yeah, but it was the clever way that they did it that because it sounds like common sense, like, yeah, we don't need 4,000 bills, but actually you mentioned how many bills aren't even sponsored by a legislator. They're just requested, right, by the governor or the attorney general or the secretary of state. And then but because you have fewer members and you don't control the committees where those can just go through anyway, it creates this huge disequilibrium, right? And then, of course, they aren't giving a lot of your bills hearings, so a lot of their bills will get hearings, a lot of yours won't.
Right.
And
truly, that's a disservice to the people of this state. I mean, I realize it's a partisan issue, but there were a lot of bills that should have had hearings. So I ran a bill. I didn't realize Representative Deal ran a very similar bill. Mine was actually a little more inclusive of mineral rights, but I ran a bill that would have stopped adversarial countries from being able to come into Oregon and buy farmland, and it had some other stipulations, land around military bases, etc. The folks from the Air Force Base in Klamath Falls actually came over and visited me. They were really happy to see the bill. Who knew that? I didn't know that the F-35s. Well, we knew the F-35s were coming to Klamath Falls. That's supposed to happen, I think, in about a year.
Yeah.
I did not realize that the Chinese have the capabilities of tracking the F-35s from the ground with trackers that would learn the characteristics of the F-35. So, and eventually would obviously give them more of an advantage. Maybe not, they might not have the complete advantage, but more of an advantage on how to shoot them down. So they came over to my office and they said they love this bill. They want to see this thing push through. And we tried to get a hearing, and the Democrats wouldn't even give us a hearing on it. It wasn't discriminatory. I mean, you could be from China, Russia, wherever you want to be, and buy land in Oregon, as long as it's not, if your country's on a terrorist watch list or you're part of their government, it would have stopped that from happening. Now, I think Ted Cruz has a similar bill in the federal government, and I'm pretty sure it already made it through, or is in the process of making it through. It's just common sense. And
it's common sense.
Yeah, and those are the kind of things that our Democrat Party in Oregon have eliminated from the chat. I mean, you just don't get to talk about them because they don't want to hear it. They just don't want to deal with it, and that would have been a great bill for Oregon citizens.
Yeah, and it's they don't even give it a hearing because they could find out just how much interest there is in this or get clarity on the issues, right? But instead, either because they have such a narrow set of priorities, or frankly, they think it's fine if China buys all this land. I know that there was a bill in Arizona a few weeks ago that had made it all the way through the Arizona legislature, had bipartisan support, went to the governor's desk, and the Democrat governor of Arizona vetoed it to protect the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, yeah, actually, I mean, they look at these things as discriminatory. I mean, it's the same thing that you see what's happening with the ICE raids. I mean, it's okay to come to the United States and be a terrorist and kill people or rape, rob, and pillage, but God forbid we send you home. I mean, that's they look at the world. I had somebody come up to me one time in a political conversation, and they're like, I don't understand what goes through a liberal's mind. Like, how can liberal people be the way they are? I mean, they use some pretty colorful words to describe it. But I said, here's the thing. Think about how we are as Republicans. As Republicans, we're laser focused on a few things, right? We want to keep our Second Amendment rights. We want to protect our First Amendment rights. We'd like to eliminate abortion. There's things that we stand for, and we are absolutely not going to bend on those issues, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're just the opposite. I mean, they just feel differently about things, and it doesn't matter what kind of common sense. I mean, a Democrat could come to me and tell me all kinds of common sense rules as to why we should eliminate pick a rifle, right? And I don't care. I'm not going to listen to it because I don't believe it. I understand my feeling on it, and I will never be in support of going against our Second Amendment rights. They're just the opposite. I used to think they were crazy. Now I just think that's just the way they're wired, and I don't understand it, and I don't know that I ever will. But I'll keep fighting it.
How do the voters understand it? Because I don't know that there's that many people that are that delusional to think, well, there's really no problem if the Chinese can monitor one of our high-tech stealth fighters by just buying property next to one of our military bases. And who looks at that and says, I'm fine with that. Sure. What American says that? Now, I know that there's people who don't believe that those things are happening, or they have this Pollyannish view of countries like China with its government. But I thought we all kind of agreed at this point that China's an issue, that they are kind of hostile at times, or certainly an adversary that doesn't mean well for us.
I think it's this. These are the same kind of people that believe that. I'll just say it. They believe that Israel is in the wrong for attacking the Palestinians over what they did on October 7th or whatever it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
These same people. again, I mean, they believe in things I don't believe in. I mean, they're openly gay and they're openly this and they're openly that. Their beliefs they are allowed to have because they are United States residents. They're citizens. If they lived in the country that they think is so great, they would throw them off the building. I mean, they wouldn't have any rights. They couldn't protest. They wouldn't be able to openly display their homosexual opinions or whatever it may be. And I'm not judging. I don't really care. But you know, they look at the world through I don't know, gold colored or maybe rose colored vision glasses or something. And it's like this is just not how the real world works. These same people don't really think we need a military. They'd love to see us not have a military, and they think we're the bullies of the world. I'm not going to say that there hasn't been a time or two that I disagreed with some of the military moves that we've made, but I think that as we are a superpower, and if we don't take our rightful spot in the way the world turns, then we give it up to the other superpowers. So we give it up to China, we give it up to Russia, and ultimately that comes back on us. And it might take I don't know, it might take decades, might take a generation, but I don't particularly want to learn how to speak Chinese. It's not really my thing.
You don't want to be forced to speak Chinese. It's nice when it's an option, right? But if you're forced, that's a whole different kettle of fish there.
Yeah, it's just a different wiring, and I wish I understood it better. Maybe I'd be a more effective legislator if I could understand why these people think the way they think. But I've been trying for 3 years and haven't figured it out yet.
Well, here's some good news for you. Literally dated today. USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, the secretary of that department has said that the department would no longer allow Chinese nationals and other foreign adversaries to purchase farmland in the United States. Already canceled 7 active agreements with foreign countries of concern and removed roughly 70 people affiliated with those contracts. And so they're taking some executive action. It is a federal issue for sure at its core. It just doesn't make sense that any state would decide to run counter to that or anything. But it's good that we have a federal government that's at least making sense. And I noticed that when Joe Biden was in there, he actually canceled a program that was designed to go and chase down the people who were getting close to and trafficking and espionage of information that they could get from industries and from universities. And it was specifically aimed at China because they were doing it. Yeah. And he canceled it. They said it was discriminatory. And I'm just like, well, what's fair about why we don't have to be fair to the Chinese Communist Party? I don't get that.
Well, they're damn sure not fair to us. I don't. Yeah, they have a mission, and again, it might not be stated publicly, but they have a mission, and they're colonizing. I sound like such an extremist, but they are colonizing countries. I mean, look where Africa is now. I mean, China doesn't have natural resources like what we do, and that's why they have colonized North Africa, not only for the minerals, but for the gold and I mean, this is just they did that. There was a time in the World War I think it wasn't China, but similar things happened. It was more stated and more upfront and in a much faster timeline, but they colonized countries and took over countries to expand for oil or expand for mineral rights, whatever they needed. Mm-hmm. Same thing's happening with China, and then they've got the spin that they're also going to make sure that they keep one step ahead of us, or at least try to keep one step ahead of us on the defense scale, right? And they don't spend the amount of money we spend on them. We have 11 aircraft carriers, I think. I think they have like 6 or something like that. But thankfully we're still ahead. And also, thankfully, we don't have Joe Biden as president, and hopefully, we don't get another Democrat in as president for quite some time, because they set us back years, not only by their green energy movement and their climate change agenda, which just absolutely. I have warned so many people in Oregon that the worst things that can happen to our state is climate change legislation. It will literally kill our economy. It will kill our way of life. And I get labeled all kinds of things because I say it, but the fact is I live in farmland. the guys that live around here, I mean, my neighbors, they have tractors, and some of them are old family. I mean, they're 65, 70-year old. They still harvest hay. They do whatever they do. They're not going to go down and buy a $250,000 electric tractor that they can't use for the time they need it. I mean, it's just, I think our country was slipping fast the wrong direction, and I think by Trump getting in office, love him or not, I mean, a lot of people don't like him for some of the things he's done. He has done everything he said he would do, and thank God.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the time I find people don't necessarily dislike him because of the things he does, at least the accurate version of what he does.
Yeah.
They just don't like how he says it. And I'm like, I don't really care if he says he's going to do something and then he does it. And
Right.
It's actually putting the country first and Americans first, our interests, which is what every other country in the world does.
Yeah.
Then let's have a debate about whether those policies are good or not. But hating a guy because he's doing what he said he was going to do is kind of silly. And we don't get that here in Oregon. We get a lot of, smoke and mirrors from our government. And I didn't mean to interrupt what you were about to say there, but that's a good lead in to some of the ODOT stuff here. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, the stronger the United States is, the stronger the world is. The better our economy is, the better other economies are for it. Obviously, if we're spending, our spending is strong. Even the Chinese economy is stronger because we're buying product from China, which is what it is. Do I wish all the manufacturing was back in the United States? Yeah, of course, but it's never going to be. That's just not reality. But one of the things that had happened was our economy was just getting weaker and weaker, and people will argue. Democrats will argue, oh well, we were that's bull. Well, the fact is, it's the truth. You can look around and you can see what it costs to buy a house. See what it costs to buy a car. See what and they're pushing. I was in Denmark last year. I did a tour of kind of a green energy. The country of Denmark has their own energy supply. They don't. And it's either wind, solar, hydrogen. They have some other sources like geothermal stuff and some heating thing that they do. The price of fuel was $8.50 a gallon.
Yeah,
so they didn't have to ban fossil fuel burning cars. They just made it so expensive you couldn't drive them.
And which is kind of one of the tricks, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly where the Biden administration and I don't think Joe Biden had anything to do with it. I don't think he was cognitively his abilities were completely gone. I still don't know, and we probably never will know who was actually running the country. But
they're going to have hearings about that. There was a President Otto Penn, and it wasn't Joe Biden. And I think we're going to find out who that was and just what decisions they made, because we are supposed to have a government that is accountable, that we know who's actually making decisions, and there has to be somebody we elected that's ultimately responsible for that.
I don't think that was happening in the end. I think who was running the country was special interest groups, NGOs that were getting funding by the billions of dollars for different purposes. Whether it be LGBTQ groups or DEI focus groups, or even climate protection groups. I mean, we have literally we were in the process of destroying. We'll get on to the ODOT thing here. I don't want to go on beat this up too much, but look what's happening in our forests, right? We have the Sierra Club, Thousand Friends of Oregon. I mean, the list is long. These groups are being funded by, they're nonprofits, but they're really for-profits, and they're being funded by government dollars that's being funneled through different organizations to get to them. And they're blocking our ability to do anything with our forests as far as managing them. And instead, we watch them burn, and then they bitch about the smoke. So, I mean, it's like, what do you want? Anyway, especially where I live. I mean, we have watched our timber industry since the 80s when the spotted owl thing became a thing. I have watched our timber industry get completely devastated, and I watch social media. I have people around me that that talk about it, and they just love it. They're just like, oh, we were clear cutting, we were logging all these trees, and we're just ruining our old growth. I got news for you. Any old growth that was 40 years ago was still old growth is probably going to die because it's been standing too long if it hasn't burned up in a fire. And I mean, it's just I could go all day on that. I'm so over this whole anti-logging movement. all they're doing is just completely devastating our economy in rural Oregon. And it's a lot of those folks are from rural Oregon, and they don't realize that they're not even going to be able to afford to live here. They already can't afford to buy a house. They have no jobs that'll pay anything. So what are you going to do? It's like
that, and they're not allowed to build houses
right.
to increase the supply, which is another imposed policy that maybe Portland likes and the people running the state government like, but it's being imposed on all of the provinces. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bit like the Hunger Games, you know, where you have all these provinces, and then they serve the capital that has all the weird colored hair and likes to, you know, yuck it up and laugh about all these people in the provinces, but they just consider them, you know, just debris that they get to play with.
Well, I mean, you know, subconsciously, I think you're right. I don't think. Well, I mean, there are some people that are just nuts and they sit around and think exactly that. But I think ultimately, the movement is they feel like they're sitting in their glass house and they're above us, right? And it's like, oh, so you hear rural, or you hear Douglas County complaining about not being able to fund its, public works because we can't log the timber. Well, too bad. We're doing just fine in Portland. Why don't you move here? You know, it's like, well, you're doing just fine in Portland because your taxes, you tax the living crap out of everybody that lives in Multnomah County. And of course, your public works are funded, and your public works people, by the way, are all union. So they're at the highest pay scale that they can possibly be on the backs of you guys that are stupid enough to sit here and think it's a good idea. Meanwhile, the rest of us sit down here in rural Oregon and we suffer. Frankly, I don't mind to suffer. I'm good with it. I'll suffer a long time here.
I think it was good in Portland until it wasn't good, and then everybody started looking at Portland saying, "Boy, that's a mess." And then people began to connect the dots. I think COVID helped, you know, unveil some of this, but it, you know, the impact of that and what it did to expose behavior and policies. But now there's just so many things that they're imposing on rural Oregon that aren't even good for people in Portland. And now we're starting to see that it's like a game, right? That they were able to run, kind of a scam where they pretended to be solving problems. They keep raising taxes and fees, and then now there's all these issues, and they're like, well, we really have to spend some money to solve it. And it's like, we're spending money like crazy. We're taxing people like crazy, but they're not solving it. Sometimes they're actually making it worse with their policies. And people are starting to notice that. I think when I was talking to Representative Reschke yesterday, he said there were 4 things that the caucus, the Republicans in the House are focused on. It was I think it was homelessness, education. Remind me of the other 2 there.
Cost of living and no taxes, I think, were the other 2.
Yeah,
I'll have to go back and read the platform that we put out with our, as a group in January.
Well, housing and homelessness, which can be 2 separate things, as we know, and they, from what I can see, not only is that on the mind of voters, but the ruling Democrats have made a royal mess of it. Like they're not building housing; they're way below. In fact, it's at a record low, right?
Yep.
And your district is particularly affected by that.
Yeah, I was able to pass a bill in my district that changed some urban growth boundary parameters down here. So we opened up the ability to build about 700 houses in my district, and just in one shot. I don't know that that'll happen overnight. We may get 50 or 100 the next year or so. But the state goal, at least the stated goal from our governor, was 36,000 houses a year. We aren't even getting anywhere near that. I think it's 11,000 last year is where we hit, or something like that. And our answer to that is to throw more money at it. But on the same note, I sit in if you follow me online, any of the committee hearings that we've done, I sit there and I listen to these hypocritical comments and bills that come in, and they just make the price of building a house more expensive, and they make the green energy, or not green energy, but the climate change rules that they're wrapping around all this crap. They increase the cost of building the damn house. I mean, it's not rocket science. If they have to have solar panels on the roof, that's another 40 grand or 50 or 60, whatever it is, depending on the size of the house. And so the problem is those contractors, they're not going to keep building in the state if they can't make any money. They're going to move on to somewhere where they can actually be profitable. That's why they're contractors. But we view them as demons when it comes to our Democrats. We're like, oh, those people shouldn't make any money. They should be doing this out of the kindness of their heart to help the homeless population, I suppose.
You mean like the angels running our government that say they're building housing? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a I'm trying to remember the name of the famous economist that it's not Feldstein, but I'll think of it. But he has a great video that he does, an interview he does with Phil Donahue years ago. And they talk about, these angels that are supposedly know better than us and are prepared to tell us what to do. And they have our best interests at heart. Which is just a silly notion because they obviously have their own best interests at heart. And that's why they end up being ruled by special interests that can control all that. And I can see the committees you're on. I mean, climate, energy, and environment must be loads of fun to sit through one thing after another, more requirements. I mean, at the same time, they're saying we have to build more housing. They're literally creating more friction towards doing it. And creating more time and more permits and adding cost to these houses to the point where you can't even afford to buy that house if you're in the market, right?
Well, there was a bill in committee that Representative Gamba was pushing, and this is the guy that calls us petulant children for not wanting to pay more taxes, right? So he and I often lock horns. We're on the same committee. His bill would have made it mandatory for group housing apartment buildings that were being built. He would like to have done every parking stall in the building parking lot, but he wanted 50% minimum of all of the parking stalls if it was more than three dwelling units or whatever, to have electric charging stations in them for electric cars. Mind you, this was for low income housing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, I mean, he's preaching this stuff, and I'm just getting more and more pissed off because I'm going. And so when it came time to ask questions, I said, Representative Gamba, can you please explain to us how many low-income folks are able to buy Teslas and will need those charging stations at their low-income housing? And of course he didn't have an answer to that. But it raised the cost per unit of $50,000 per unit on average just to pipe that crap in there and do it. And he thought that was a great idea. We argued back and forth on that for so long, and finally, he tried to get Republican buy-in on it, which was just a waste of his breath. But what he ended up doing was he got it done at 20% of parking lots in the metro area, so in Portland and the big city. So I'm like, good. They don't need any more houses up there. We'll build them down here. They can have you, and they can have all their crap, and they can enjoy themselves. But I mean, that's just one of 100 things that I heard this session that was going to make it harder to build a house. And the governor's on top of it. She thinks it's great. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of dumb they are. I don't get it. It's like, if you want to make the economy thrive and you want housing to take off, then take the reins off. Let them build houses. Get rid of it. Stop worrying about wetlands. Stop worrying about all these restrictions and all this BS. Let them build.
Yeah, they've created a whole syndicate, right, around like wetlands mitigation. I've heard explanations of that, and they've also created an entire process where you're supposed to have these DEI targets. You're supposed to have so many people that are of one color or ethnicity or gender preference, and otherwise you can't get certified. So there's like this climate justice thing, and the question I have is, how much have they done to control the temperature of even Oregon, not to mention the earth, with any of this? Because this costs a lot of money and really makes it impossible for people to afford living here.
Yeah, and that's an easy answer. Absolutely nothing. Zero. Oregon could go completely green, like beyond. I mean, we're already a carbon neutral state, if maybe even better, because we have trees. So the carbon gets sequestered by the trees. But what they're set an example. I think it's a West Coast thing because obviously California's already lost, and Washington's headed down the same path. I think they're trying to set an example that the rest of the country can follow, or the rest of the world. I got news for you. The rest of the country might somehow fall in line, but do you think China gives two craps about whether or not they're building coal plants in China because they need more electricity, and they're building nuclear power plants, and we're taking our natural gas plants out because somehow after 57 years of growing up being told that natural gas is much better and more efficient than electricity, now they've flipped the switch. It's better off than electricity. It's like
and telling us that we have to buy solar panels from where?
China. that are made with coal power. I mean, it's like the hypocrisy. And I've called them that on the House floor. I mean, I give some pretty fiery remonstrances sometimes, and some pretty fiery comments to some of the bills. It's just flat out hypocrisy. And some of the Democrats, I'm not going to badmouth all of them because some of them get it. I mean, I'm not going to give you the list online, but I know there's at least 7 of them that are not dumb. And they even though
they know better. They know better.
Yeah, they know better. And even though it's a mob rule thing, so they tend to stay with their caucus because if they don't, God forbid, the governor will primary them or do whatever she can to defund their campaigns. And that's a thing. That is really a thing.
Oh, sure.
But there are very common sense, middle of the road Democrats. For instance, I'll just give you one of them, and that's Annessa Hartman. She's she's part of the tribes, and she knows better. Her and I, we've talked. She knows better on a lot of these things. And then when it comes to gun bills, Chai-Chi, she owns a gun. She's a Democrat with a concealed carry permit, and she has a gun. And so there's a history there as to why she does it. Yet they're trying to take those rules. They're trying to take your gun rights away. And the same thing with Evans. In fact, Evans finally came out this session and said, "Look, I'm thinking about switching parties because I don't agree with the gun bills."
Wow. Yeah, and there were 3 gun bills, and one of them made it through, right? And then there were 2 that fortunately got killed. But still, they bite off just another piece of flesh, another chunk out of the Second Amendment every session, and they make things. They don't make the state any safer. They say they're making it safer, but then they do something like this, and it's like, so how many crimes committed by criminals who are not allowed to possess firearms in many cases, who still possess them illegally, are you taking off the street by making a concealed carry handgun holder unable to have a firearm to protect themselves and the people around them?
Well, yeah, exactly. And then they want the 72-hour waiting period because they feel like if they can make somebody wait 72 hours, they may not commit suicide with a gun because they thought they talked themselves out of it over that 72 hours. It's like, and the list goes on. They can justify any stupid they want. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it like I see it. The gun control laws are stupid. There's nothing about those that would have made our state one bit safer. And they call me names like I don't care about kids and all this crap. And it's like, well, I actually do care about kids. I don't want to see kids shot in school, but you know what?
Yeah,
I would like to see teachers carry arms. I'd like to see them go through a firearms course, and I would like to see them carry concealed or whatever they need to do. But last session we introduced a bill that they didn't let out of committee that would have the state would have funded a school resource officer in every school. We introduced a bill that would have put metal detectors in every school. The state would have paid for it. Democrats wouldn't even let it come to the floor for a hearing or for a vote. So what do they really care about? Well, I would say that looking at the average scores and grades in our schools, they don't give 2 shits about our kids. Sorry about the language, but I don't think they care. I don't think
this is a free speech zone. You're good.
I don't think they care about the kids. I think honestly, I can't figure that out. I have thought that through 100 times in 50 different ways as to how can they, other than just do less harm, how can they justify making it easier for kids to get through school and reducing the levels of what they have to do to pass a test? And it's come on, guys. I went to school. If I didn't go to class, I got kicked out or whatever whatever the circumstances are, and I graduated. I did it. It's like I'm no different than every other kid that should be going to school. And
Well, they turned it into a giant daycare center that just socially promotes people, and it's actually I almost feel like it should be possible for some of those kids later, when they realize that they've been given this huge disadvantage by people who were playing politics with their futures, that they could come back and maybe file a class action lawsuit against the state for all the stuff the state didn't do for them. The only thing is we are paying a lot of money for an education system. We're just not getting a good education system. And I think we're about to pay money for people in the education system to strike against the education system and still get paid to do it. But with unemployment.
There's not one thing about that bill that made any sense at all, except it's a union-sponsored bill, and the unions are happy because now they have more power than they had before. And what makes it more expensive in this state to live here, do business here, build a house here, go to the grocery store, whatever? The unions. They always have been, and that's what they're doing now. And honestly, the unions are what's destroyed ODOT as well. So it's a big part of it. And our governor is fully funded and supported by SEIU. And SEIU is one of the biggest ODOT unions there is. And when I say that, I mean, I want to be clear. There's a lot of folks in SEIU and other unions that are just the Teamsters, whatever. They're great folks. I mean, I don't think that, and heck, there's a lot of Republicans in those unions too. It's the movement of the union as a body that is financing, and they're financing and funding things that are bad for the state. That ultimately, short-term wise, I think are good for the unions because they're gonna pay more, they're gonna have more union rights, but ultimately those jobs are gonna vanish because businesses are not happening here. We are not a business-friendly state, and the more restrictions we put on business by making things like public labor agreements, like what Kotek did with ODOT. Of course, that's an injunction right now, but the more of that kind of crap we do, the less work's going to happen. And I look at it as a parasite, right? Ultimately, the parasite eats the host, and the host dies.
Yeah,
that's where we're headed. And with every inch of my body, I am trying to block this hypocrisy, the best I can. And I think our Republican caucus is trying to do the same thing. I mean, we're all firm on no new taxes, make life more livable in the state. And of course our Second Amendment rights are a big deal, but when you're in the minority party, you have choices. You can walk out, but that doesn't stop a bill. That just moves it to a different date. And what irritates me is those same folks that voted yes on 113 are pissed off at us because we don't walk out. And it's like, well, where were you when Measure 113 passed and it said that we only had 10 days and then we lose our positions? Well, you're just, I hear it all the time. Well, you're just career politicians. I got news for you. This don't pay that much.
No, this is not a career.
This is not a career. I do this because I want to represent people in my district, and only because I want to represent people. And I'm not beholden to anybody except the people that put me in that position. It's particularly the party, because sometimes the Republican Party gets a little extreme on some things as well. And I think that it's important as a Republican that you honor the platform that the Republican Party, honors. But that's it, right? I mean, from that point, you have to look back at your people and you go, look, is it good for Douglas County or District 2 to pass this bill, or is it going to hurt them? If it's going to hurt them, I'm going to be a no. I mean, that's just how it is. Might be good for the Republicans in Tillamook, I don't know, somewhere else, and that's fine. They can vote yes on it, and ultimately we see what happens.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the end of session, what happened there, and ODOT. Now, you actually have, I think, a position in the leadership, right? You're a deputy? Is it a deputy?
No, I'm the Republican Party whip, which is way more fun than being the deputy. I actually get the deputy just kind of, she works under the leader and does what she does. My job is to, keep us all kind of pull in the same direction and hopefully influence. Sometimes you can't really bend somebody's arm behind them, but influence the vote. I mean,
Virgil's coming to talk to you, so maybe you want to just do the right thing,
Right. So one of my jobs is to get vote counts, right? So if we have a bill that's coming up, I will go to each one of the members and find out, what their intention is to vote, and then take that back to the leader, and the leader can make a decision on if we need to, chat with that member and try to change the vote or whatever the case may be. And I also help organize the caucus meetings, and I run the queue and all the questions and stuff like that. So I mean, it's kind of a cool. It's an elected position. I mean, the caucus elects you into that spot. And then you got to be a parliamentarian on the House floor too. I mean, I'm the one that's supposed to make sure that they don't slip one by us. And every once in a while, I do catch one. And sometimes there's a lot of we go by Mason's manual. There's a lot of stuff that happens that you can't know it all, but you got to make sure that we keep them on the straight and narrow. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So on that note, what happened? So here we go. We were looking at House Bill 2025, which was, as you know, the biggest tax increase in the history of Oregon. I believe 11 billion or whatever. I think ultimately 15 billion over 10 years, with all kinds of pork and all kinds of stupid things in it. As a caucus, we had some folks that defected from our caucus that had gone over and they were meeting with the Democrats. And again, that's at the time where you really want to twist somebody's arm, because like, what are you doing, right? I mean, their intentions were great, and these guys are both great guys. They didn't go, they weren't trying to be Democrats, but they wanted to make sure that we were, I guess, protected from a bad decision. Ultimately, when you're dealing with a bill of this magnitude, that goes through leadership, and should be. Christine Drazen was our leader, Lucetta was the deputy, and I was the whip. We should have some direction. And the speaker knew that the three of us were hardcore no new taxes. So yeah. What they do in turn is they go through and try to pick off the weakest Republicans they can, or the ones that are in swing districts, and try to pick them off, include them into the group, talk to them, negotiate with them, and then bam, you all of a sudden have a bill that's now, because one or two people voted for the Republican Party, now it's a bipartisan bill. And that didn't happen for them this time around. The bill was so egregious, so bad, that the Republicans that had gone over both came back and said, we're not voting for this crap.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, Senator Meek left the building. I don't know if you heard about that.
He got removed from that committee by Wagner, the Senate president, when he didn't follow orders from the leader, right?
He didn't follow, yes, from the leader and also from the governor, because she was hot for this bill. And he used some very colorful words as he left the building. I was told later. It started with the F. And so obviously the Democrats, their party fell apart on this. And I think that this was a bill that would have, well, let's back up a second. I'm sure you also watched or saw some of the hearing where Senator Pozansky attacked Representative Bossart Davis in committee.
I heard about it, yeah.
Yeah, her basically saying, hey, we're being very irresponsible here. And the part she was talking about being irresponsible was they were going to connect House Bill 2025 to CPI. So as inflation went up, the tax on fuel also went up without coming back to the legislature. So in 10 years, the price of fuel could have easily been $10 a gallon, and we couldn't have done anything about it. But that's just one of the many ridiculous things that they were trying to do. And she was basically calling them out, saying, hey, this is irresponsible of the legislature to give away our ability to be able to adjust this thing with common sense. This is just tying it to a factor we have no control over. And then Pozansky, of course, got all mad about it and said some things. Well, shortly after that, President Wagner removed himself from the committee, as well as Pozansky also resigned. So there was a lot of tension in the Senate. I don't think there was enough votes in the Senate to get that bill through.
Right.
And when it came to the House, I think they were faced with the same problem. And it's in the House, it's a 30. Of course, the bill was a House bill. All tax bills start in the House. They don't start in the Senate. They have to start in the House. It's a 36 vote minimum to get a tax bill passed.
Without a vote of the people, right? You have
exactly,
to.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think had that bill passed, it was going to get a referral back to the people anyway, because there was, it was already set up. I mean, prior Senator Boquist was already working on putting it on the ballot, and I'm sure it would have failed miserably on the ballot, because nobody wants to pay 80 cents a gallon more in gas and whatever. But But I think this was one of those bills that was to the point where probably at least 4 Democrats would have lost their seats if they had voted yes on this bill, and maybe as many as 7.
Wow.
And, I mean, you think about this. I mean, this is one of those turning points. This is like a Republican voting yes on an abortion bill, and you saw what happened to Charlie Conrad. So, I mean,
the HB 2000
right
3 or whatever. Yeah,
he was primaried and gone about as fast as he could get gone, and I think that was going to happen. So ultimately, they decided not to bring the bill to the floor, and which is kind of cool. And we call that a win. I mean, in our book, that's a big win because now we don't have to vote on it. But the Democrats on the floor also call it a win because they didn't want to vote on it either. It was just that bad. So I was actually on Thursday. I was riding the elevator from the parking garage up to my offices, and I ran into Governor Kotek was in the elevator with me, and we're pretty friendly. I mean, her chief staff is Bob Livingston. He's from Glide, so we know each other. And Governor Kotek and I have a good relationship. I've got her cell number. I call her sometimes if I need something, or we talk or whatever. And she was carrying 3 boxes of donuts, and I said, I call her Tina. I said, Tina, are one of those boxes of donuts going to our caucus room? Not exactly. She was already pissed. This was Thursday morning.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll bet I know where you're going. She goes, yeah. So she spends most of the morning just beating the hell out of her caucus, just beating them to bloody death, right? Threatening, with primaries, and threatening with defunding their projects, and I mean, whatever. I mean, I've only heard bits and pieces because I wasn't in the room. And I will say that one of those boxes did end up in our caucus, by the way, so that was good. But ultimately, I think her caucus rejected the bully tactic that she was trying to use on them. So that kind of died on the vine Thursday, and then Friday she came back with because we're under the clock, right? So now the Republicans, we drive the schedule once we're under 10 days.
The closer you get to sine die, right?
Yeah, and mind you, they had almost 6 months to get their agenda through, and they never could get it done.
Well, this bill didn't show up till June 9th, right? I mean, that was 3 weeks before the end of the session. They bring this biggest tax increase giant bill in. Yeah,
and I think that largely had to do, I don't think that was strategic. I think it largely had to do, they were just trying to get buy-in, and they just couldn't get it from anybody. From their own side, they couldn't get buy-in. I mean, there was those extremists. I mean, there's always the Democrats that are, oh, yes, we'll vote yes on anything, Madam Governor, whatever, But the common sense Democrats are going, this is a career ender for us. The Dave Gombergs, the Paul Evans, the Anessa Hartmans, the Emerson Levy's. I mean, that's a career-ending vote.
Mark Meek,
for those folks. So, and those are all good folks. But so I think ultimately it died. So out of the blue, the governor comes up with a -3 amendment to 3402, which was a 3-cent per gallon gas tax, and it would have raised about, I think they were estimating it was going to raise around $300 million. And it would have been a stopgap, is what they're calling it, for to keep from laying people off, which I'll get to that in a minute. Mm-hmm. But the other part, it had 4 parts to the bill. 2 of the parts were kind of inconsequential, but 2 of the parts were really major. One was the raising the gas price 3 cents a gallon, which is not huge, but it also decoupled the funds from what, there's a 50-30-20 split, I think, that goes back to the counties and cities from ODOT.
Oh yeah, that's right. So the state keeps some, and some goes to the counties and the cities. Yeah.
This would have taken the split away and given all of it to the state, all of it, 100% of it to the state. And I mean, all it took was one phone call. I believe Senator Brock Smith actually made the phone call, probably telling on him, but to the Association of Oregon Counties. I want to say within a few hours, I heard there was like over 3,000 people lined up to testify against it. I mean, it would have been a horrible, horrible bill for the municipalities, the local counties and stuff. So, I was, now we're in caucus, now we're negotiating, and we were supposed to have been on floor all this time, all day, and they kept postponing and postponing. So literally, I'm sitting in Representative Sharp's office. I might have been having a cold beverage with a couple other representatives, just watching the antics on television, closed circuit TV. And I watched the governor testify on this bill and it's how urgent it is and we need to do it. And then I watched for an hour people were just blasting her and how bad this is for. Anyway, ultimately, they couldn't get the votes for that either. And so the clock just was ticking, and the Senate said, "We're done tonight." And when the Senate's done, that means there's no time for the bill to go from the House to the Senate. So they can't pass it. So this bill's going to die.
Game over.
Game over. So we had some options. We could have let them take the bill to. We can suspend the rules. That's my job. Suspend the rules on the floor and let them bring the bill out of committee right to the floor on a second reading.
They need 2/3, right, of the body to vote for that.
To get it passed, yes, but they could get it to the floor, and but we would have had to suspend. We could have suspended rules. There was enough vote for that, and that would have let them go immediately to second readings, and then we could have suspended it to go to third readings, which would have brought it up to the vote that night. And now again, we control. They have to have 40 votes to suspend the rules, and we're not going to give them the votes. So we're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that.
After the way they treated you guys through the entire session and said it's no compromise, it's this or get lost. What do they expect?
No. Well, there was a lot of Democrats that were breathing a sigh of relief because they didn't want to vote on it.
Yeah,
but and there was part of our strategy was, I mean, we were literally sitting in a caucus room at 10 o'clock that night, going, okay, do we let them bring it to the floor and then make them vote on it? Because we know it's not probably going to get through the Senate anyway, but should we make them vote on it so we can use it against them in campaigns? Or do we kill it? Because we can kill it. And we're there's 16 of us sitting in this room and we're all talking back and forth trying to figure out what the best strategy is. And Leader Drazen was on the phone with Bonham, trying to call Bonham from the Senate, leader in the Senate.
Yeah.
And miraculously, he walks in the door, right? He came over from the Senate side and he walks in and he opened the door and he said, kill it.
Kill it.
It's dead.
It's dead, yeah.
It died right there. And, we basically did a vote. The other thing they were holding to the very end was House Bill 5006, which they were holding hostage, which is the Christmas tree bill, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we couldn't vote on that until, and the Senate couldn't go home until they voted on that because that's constitutionally that's what we do, right? I mean, we bring money back to the district,
basically.
Yeah. So we advanced 5006, got it out of the House, went over to the Senate. As soon as they passed it in the Senate, they sine died, and we sine died shortly. I think we had one more bill that Representative Boyce was carrying.
Yes.
Yeah,
I had him on the show last week, and we talked about it. And there were 9 votes against it, against having a golf course just simply permitted to have maybe an expedited review so that they could economically develop Northern Curry County, and 9 people voted against it. That's just spite or something. I don't know.
I don't know, but I'll be honest with you. The only reason I stayed and didn't leave right after the other. Well, I was going to leave early anyway. Only reason I didn't is for that damn bill, and I was expecting that bill to pass at like 3 PM.
Yeah.
And at 10:30 that night, we finally got through the damn thing, and then it was over after that.
Tell me something here, because there was the wildfire map bill, which really affects your district, and they held that hostage. They were going to try to force you guys to vote to take the kicker and send it to fight wildfires, but not manage the forest, as we know.
Yep.
To prevent the wildfires, which could have been paid for by managing the forest and harvesting timber.
Yeah.
But now, so we're heading into the wildfire season. There's always a lot of concern about that, but it seems like a broken record. Like we're just replaying the same thing every year. And yet we do know how to do this. It doesn't sound like there was much progress in the legislature. I think there was some money that was diverted. There's a tax on like Zyn, which is that nicotine chewing gum, and then there's there's a couple other things, right? But
yeah, well, keep in mind there was in the general fund budget there was I think 180 million that was already figured into general funds to take care of wildfire. They need more than that. They need about another 100 million more. And the Zen tax is going to take up 65 million of that, I think, or something. There's plenty. They have plenty of money to fund wildfire. I'm sure that there will be some reason why Governor Kotek will blame some fire somewhere on the fact that we didn't fund it, which is total bullshit. It's funded. Yeah. And the folks, and here's the cool thing about the Zen tax. There was a bill that finally died this year, but I'm sure would have came back, and they were trying to outlaw flavored tobacco products. And, I'm adamantly against that. I smoke backwoods cigars, and it pisses me off when I try to go to Nevada and I go through California and I can't buy them in California. So I have to wait till I get to Reno to buy them because California passed that ban on flavored. Anyway, long story. But by making Zen tax, which is a flavored tobacco product, it's a flavored nicotine product. By making that tax what it is, and Zen was happy to do it because, and I didn't vote yes on it, but they were happy to have it because that firms them up as they'll always, once that money is pointed to a direction, it's never coming back. It's going to always be there. So that means they can't outlaw. They can't outlaw it anymore. They're
getting money from it.
They've literally locked themselves into their own hypocrisy, and I'm going, awesome. I mean, power to them. And it's like a 65-cent a can tax or something like that. I don't chew, but I think Zen is like way less expensive than Copenhagen and Skoal and everything else. So even with the tax, it's still considerably cheaper. So I mean, it's a vice. It's no different than drinking a beer. It is what it is. I just find it humorous that they allowed it.
But they just refuse to manage the force, and it's like the total common sense thing. It could be a boon for all the districts in that entire section of the state, much of the state where there's forest land, and it would also pay for public safety and schools and things like that, like it once did. And they just refuse to do it. They want everything to be wild and for it to burn, which is ironic because we're breathing the stuff instead of turning it into wood products and thinning the forest so that it's properly managed and doesn't burn as readily.
This all starts when they're young, right? I mean, they're indoctrinated that loggers are bad, cutting trees down bad, killing, animals bad, all that, and it's stuff that, of course, I don't know if I'm older than you or not, but, growing up, I mean, I hunted, fished, hiked, four-wheeled, I used the forest. I still do. I mean, I do a lot of camping and outdoor stuff, and they don't agree with that. I mean, if you can go hike into the backwoods somewhere and I guess camp in your tent and not have a fire because you don't want to build a fire, damage the environment, then I guess you're okay. They don't fundamentally, and I say they, I'm talking about the movement against the timber industry. They don't fundamentally understand things like jobs, the jobs that are created from the job, the money that's spent in the community from that job. I mean, they think of loggers as these big, bad, ugly people that drive log trucks and cut trees down. The reality of it is those loggers also, they buy their equipment from the local shops. They have their chainsaws managed from the local shops with the equipment that they need. They buy their diesel from the local companies that sell for their log trucks. They buy their tires from the local companies. They buy their chains. They buy their clothing. I mean,
they eat food.
Their food, yeah. I mean, they raise families. They pay their taxes. They keep the schools open. When you take away on the pyramid, when you take away a top tier position or job that pays living wages, used to, there's a trickle down effect, and then you end up with people that are homeless and drug addicts and meth heads, and then we're expected to find the money to take care of these folks. Meanwhile, our forests are burning up because we've taken away the ability to manage I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and thank God, I think Trump he's stopped some of this. I mean, he is going to log.
He's certainly defunding some of the stuff that they shouldn't be spending money on. And if they want to spend money on, they're going to have to go and have these fights in their own caucus about raising taxes and maybe risking some of those seats, right?
Well, I mean, ODOT's DEI spending, I wish I could remember the number, but it's in the millions. I mean,
Representative Reschke told us last night, $28 million is what that department, and that's just ODOT.
Yeah. So you tell me that laying off one critical employee at ODOT is worth funding a $28 million DEI project. Are you freaking kidding me?
That doesn't fill a pothole, build a road,
Right.
plow a snow. It doesn't do any of those things. It's just a social cause that the Democrats favor, which, and right now, of course, and this is probably a good thing to wrap up on, is
Sure.
now they're threatening, and actually they announced that they're laying off somewhere around 500 ODOT workers. They and of course Tina Kotek's she blamed the people who left early and didn't stay to the dying moment of the session, but then and she was doing all those things you were talking about, which she played cool, right? She just like, oh, they're working it out, and I'm just the governor, and then at the end she's like, all of a sudden she's like really serious and yelling at people, and clearly it's not whoever Fahey's not keeping the trains running on time quite the way Tina did when she was the speaker. I think that's safe to say at this point. But now they're laying people off, and you guys had a transportation budget that just focused on the priorities, right?
Yep.
That's what you guys proposed early in the session, and you said we wouldn't have to lay off any ODOT workers. We would just do the things people expect ODOT to do.
Yeah.
And here they are claiming that all these services, all these things can't be done, and you'll start noticing it, and they're laying people off.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you hit it right on the head. This is her decision. The people getting laid off. It's not because of us. It's the decision she's making. They don't even need to be laid off yet. They're not. They're already in the hole, and they have money. They're estimating that they're going to be in the hole. I have to think that part of the reason they're laying off people now is because they know that the Trump administration is going to cut off their federal funding. I really have to think that's why, and they're trying to have enough money in the coffers left to react. And Reske could probably be. When it comes to finances, Reske's way more educated on some of that stuff than myself. But this is a self-created problem that the whole thing. It's taken years to get ODOT in the hole they're in, and it all starts with the way it's being ran. And there's no accountability for ODOT or how it's being ran, how they can just vanish $1 billion last year. And not one person was fired over that.
No one.
Nobody was even reprimanded over it.
That's almost a reward for screwing up, is to do something that stupid and nothing happens. But you know who is being punished? According to Tina Kotek, she's warning people around the state will feel these cuts, especially in the winter. So she's saying that everybody who is going to be upset that the roads aren't being plowed, apparently that they have to spend $28 million on DEI, and they said they didn't have $19 million to plow the snow in the last season.
Mark my words. I'll tell you this. How well in an election year you think that's going to play out for the governor by cutting those services? She knows that she's going to have to bring that stuff back. She knows that she's going to need the jobs. She knows she's going to need the services. And she also knows right now she doesn't have any way to get that through the legislature. So
through her own party.
Yes.
Well, and I will add one other thing. I know that there was an article here, sure enough, popped up yesterday. I-5 freeway expansion in Rose Quarter in jeopardy without federal funds. Well, apparently also without some state funds. But what's fascinating is, wasn't that funded in 2017 with a tax increase, a gas tax increase, and they never built it? Why would we want to give them more money to do stuff they never do that we thought they were supposed to do?
Kevin, they spent $70 million on studying how to toll I-5. Studying how to toll it. $70 million. Count those dollars. When it comes to accountability, I love every single one of those guys that stand out there on the road and do their jobs, and they run the equipment. Those guys are the heartbeat of our country and our state. But the abuse that they're getting right now is just simply pure revenge from a governor that knows better. And like I've told, believe me, my phone's been blowing up for 2 weeks. And like I tell everybody, I said, look, elections have consequences. Remember that. Number one, this is a situation that was created by and is continued to be, nursed by poor management and more focus on DEI and climate change prevention than it is about you and your family. So when it comes time to vote, remember that that's who our governor is, and that's who our Democrats are. So hopefully we can get them out of office. I mean, just God, even if we could get it tied in the House, it would be good.
Well, the Oregonian editorial board, I think, is there with you, or at least they're saying some things we're going to be able to quote in ads. Yeah. Which is that with Democrats wielding a supermajority, it seemed a foregone conclusion the new revenue for transportation was on its way, except the Democrats leading the caravan drove right into a ditch.
And that's a great way to say it, because that's exactly where it's still at.
It is, and they're actually urging Tina Kotek to waive, I think, PLA, which is some kind of
project labor.
Yeah, which makes it really expensive to do any of this stuff.
She did that in February. She did an executive order requiring all ODOT projects to be PLAs, which means union projects, no matter where they are in the state. So what happens there is you have a project that's going on down here in Douglas County, and there's not any available union. And there's a lot to this. This is that three-dimensional chess part. It's not just a union project. It's a DEI project, because DEI has to be followed with unions, which means 20%, I think it's maybe up to 28%, have to be Black, LGBTQ, whatever they call it, BIPOC. Well, they don't even have that workforce here. So
no. And if they wanted them to come down, where would they live? Because there's no housing.
Yeah, it's not going to exactly. It's not going to happen. So what happens is you have contractors that, number one, they'll turn down the job, or they'll bid it so high they can afford to bring people in from Multnomah County or somewhere else to be able to do the work. And so, I mean, what happens to the budget? When she did that, I immediately came out with a press release against it. I just what in the world are you thinking as a governor? I mean, I don't know how you can say I'm all about unions more than what she did. And shame on the unions for thinking that it's a great idea. I mean, I realize it creates union jobs. Maybe realistically, it probably kills potential projects all over rural Oregon. I mean, it's great for Portland, whatever. I don't even care. I mean, I'm so done with Portland right now. I mean, we could go on and on about the
only 7% of Portland is African American, by the way, less than 7%. So they're going to have the same problem there too.
Yeah. But we did things this year in the legislature. They were just dumb. I mean, we gave $10 million to the James Baird flea market in downtown Portland. That came out of general funds, it's on the 5006 bill, in the Christmas tree bill. That's going to fund building this local. I mean, what in the hell? We gave the Portland waterfront money, and then of course we don't even need to talk about the damn baseball field. But the baseball field had some merit to it, because it wasn't actually money coming out of general fund. It was money that was coming out of expected taxes coming back. So I was actually
authorized bonds or something, right?
Yeah. It's complicated, but I was kind of okay with that. I think I might have even voted to pass it through. But they're in competition with Utah, with Salt Lake. You really think Oregon, in the disaster that Portland is going to get that baseball team over Salt Lake City? No chance. I mean,
they can only clean the homeless off the streets so many times before somebody shows up and says, this place is a mess.
Well, yeah, and in the hearings, you can go back and watch a committee hearing. I asked the mayor in person, in a public hearing. I said, I'm okay. I understand what you're trying to do for your city, and I appreciate it. But I said, you need to clean up your mess, and you need to fund the police, and you need to make sure that this doesn't turn into the crime center that it could be like. And I gave him an example of Oakland, because I used to work down there. And now, obviously, Oakland, the Raiders have left. Everybody's left. Yep. And, we're focusing on this, we're focusing on that. And then 3 months later, they cut the Portland police budget by $2 million. It's like,
yeah, they did.
Yeah, give me a freaking break. Those guys they can't even. And then they got 19 people on their city council or something ridiculous. I don't even know.
They've got 12, but it's and then a huge bureaucracy, and then they all argue with each other, and in the end, they produce stink bombs like the one you just described.
Yeah.
What message could be more clear? Even people in Portland got tired of Mike Schmidt, the DA, and fired him. Yeah. So some of these people are going to probably get fired next time, but who knows?
But meanwhile, not a single one of them has ever signed the front side of a paycheck. They don't even know what the hell, I mean, they don't know what they're doing other than running business out of town as fast as they can. And frankly, I know you probably saw I can't remember the name of the tower there, but I think it was for sale. It sold for pennies
Oh,
on
the
the dollar.
Big Pink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's a reason why the value of that property is next to nothing compared to what it should be.
It should be tens of millions, and it was like 2 million or something crazy.
Yeah. That didn't just happen in a vacuum. That happened because of what they've allowed their city to become. And I just.
Well, so everybody can see that. I think there is hope because even Democrats can't stomach. Some of them can't stomach what their party wants to do. It's arrogant, and it doesn't make any sense. It's defying common sense. But that's why it's really great to have folks representing people like yourself in the state legislature, because you speak plainly. You call out when it doesn't make sense, and yet you still have these dialogues with people that at times it seems like they're from an alternate universe, but you do keep that line of communication going, and frankly, keep the pressure on. I know that they're talking about a special session, right? And it could happen.
Yeah.
It might happen,
probably.
But we are also going to be able to fight and make sure that people understand, like Tina Kotek said, she's not going to plow your snow because she's got DEI to do.
Yeah.
We're going to tell people that, right? And so I just wanted to make sure before we wrap up here, if there was any other topics you wanted to mention, and then also want to let people know how they can follow you and get more information about the things that you share, through your website and social media.
Yeah, of course, and thank you. No, I mean, we covered, the majority of what's going on. I've got, yesterday I met with about 60 or 70 veterans down here at a veterans meeting. We talked about the $35 million for the Veterans Fund. We were able to keep that going. It made it through on the 5006 bill, which is not signed by the governor yet, but hopefully, I can't imagine that she would line item veto a veterans home, but who knows?
I don't think her reelection prospects are going to look super good when that ad runs. If she,
I do fully expect her to line item veto a lot of Republican districts items that are on the Christmas tree bill, because I think that she's really pissed off. And I also think she's going to probably can some of the Democrats' items that didn't go, with her. But right now I'm focusing on the interim. I'm meeting, of course, this tonight, but I had meetings this morning. I love this job. I mean, they call it a part-time job, but I put in more than 40 hours a week doing it, and I love every bit of it, because it's especially, I always look forward to the interim because I get to spend the time in district with people that, they're the ones that voted for me. And I have people come up to me all the time. I have no idea who they are, but I have people come up to me in the grocery store and say, "Hey, you're Virgil Osborne, right?" I said, "Yeah, maybe." I don't know.
Yeah, really.
And
what do you think of him?
and they'll come up to me and they'll say, "Hey, I just want to thank you for standing up for us and doing what you're doing, and we love what you're doing." And I don't even know who they are. And just that happening, and I bet that happens at least 3 or 4 times a week in public. And I mean, there's no better feeling, right? Because that's why I'm here. I'm not here for myself. I mean, I'm just not. That's just not my nature. And frankly, I'm not much of a politician. I pretty much call it like I see it. And I'm not going to bend over and kiss anybody's ass because if you do this for me, then maybe or I can do that for you or whatever. That's not how this works for me. I'm there to represent my folks. I'm there to do the best I can do against what I call hypocrisy and liberal diseases. But anyway, so no, I think we touched base on everything. I'm on Facebook. I'm easy to find. You can find my personal Facebook at Virgil Osborne on Facebook. Also, you can find my legislative Facebook as well. It's on there. It's Representative Virgil Osborne. Most of what I do, I start it when I share it. I'll share it on my personal site, or I'll start it on my personal site, share it to my legislative site. So I'm easy to. All my contact information's on there. We also have virgilosborne.com that you can go to, and although that's not nearly as active as our social media, and I'm working on X. I'll get it up and running. I'm slow. Facebook was my choice.
Well, I just posted your sort of your campaign website where they can learn more about you there, and I also posted the news page from your state legislative website, which has all those press releases like the ones you had mentioned during the show here, where folks can go get more information.
Yeah, so my chief of staff, Jen Jasper, she absolutely is great when it comes to social media and keeping up on all of our legislative. She writes my newsletters for me. Well, I say that I write the columns and stuff, and then she organizes it and puts it all together. This job you cannot do by yourself. It's just entirely. I mean, we'll get, some days if it's a bill that's super controversial, we may get 500 emails in a day. There's no way you can by yourself do all that and then do your job too. So I have two folks that actually three on my staff that back me up, and it's really we're a great team, and we all love what we do. So I thank all of them, and that's about all I got.
Well, this is great, and so so folks can go to the sites that we listed here and follow Representative Osborn. One of the folks here posted in the feed that we're on the verge of greatness and spelled it like your first name. And so
I forgot to mention I do have my own podcast that we shoot on Fridays, and it's called On the Verge.
On the Verge. Oh, right. Okay.
And it's right leaning, but open to both sides of the aisle. And I can't believe I forgot to mention that. Yeah, you can find us on YouTube. It's On the Verge on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music. There's about 13 other sites that we're on, and we talk about the topics of the day. We're shooting again this Friday, and it'll probably go out on Tuesday. We're not doing it live yet, but kind of like what you're doing here, Kevin. I think at some point we'll probably go more live and be able to have comments and stuff. We just haven't got there yet, but it will eventually happen. So please follow us. And thank you for posting all that stuff.
I just posted it here so folks can go look it up on the Verge podcast. Yeah. And
there's no E on the Verge. It's just on the VIRG podcast.
VIRG?
Yeah, just VIRG, no E there.
Oh, okay, got it. So I'll spell that correct. On.
I see Les on there.
Oh.
Les, thank you for the support, Les. If you're still watching, Les Poole, he's a good dude. He came to our last little Republican outing as well. So, and I should ask you before we get off the phone, how's Monique doing? Are you guys still in regular contact?
Yeah, and she's working with Common Sense for Oregon, trying to formulate some common sense. Think how many times you said common sense. Yeah. And there's a dearth of that in the state, and so she's busy fighting for that. And of course, she's based in Eugene, which is one of the places that seems to not make too much sense sometimes, but they're fighting back there too, because I think there's all kinds of stuff they're doing in Eugene, which they're sort of running out of their excuses too, and trying to get money out of people for stuff that doesn't make any sense.
I have an open spot Friday for Monique. If she would like to be on our podcast, I'd be happy to have her. She'd have to come down to Roseburg. We're not doing it remote yet, but I'll
pass that along to her. Yeah, I don't, but I know that she's often in Salem, working on stuff there too. So I'll pass it along and let her know that you've got a podcast going. And I know that we all really enjoyed working with you in the campaign last year, and who knows what's going to happen in the future, but I know that things are not going Val Hoyle's way in D.C. right now.
No, I don't think they are either. It's not a good time to be a Democrat in D.C.
Yeah,
I did go to the inauguration, and I will tell you that Val gave me the tickets, so that was kind of cool that she did that.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that there's like cordial element that still exists, but she's. Again, I'm probably not overstating it when I say she's not too pleased with the Trump administration.
Well, when Val offered the tickets to me, I'm like, really? And she goes, well, we have a lot of Democrat tickets to give away because they're not.
People didn't want them. Yeah. Well, good.
I see Monique just said she'd love to come on. If you're available Friday morning, if you can be in Roseburg about 8:45, 8:30, then we would love to have you. You can talk about the new thing you're talking about there and the movement. That's kind of what we're all about. So we'd love to have you. But I'll shoot you a text after we're done here tonight. So anyway,
sounds good.
All right. Well, take care, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Representative Osborn. And thanks, everybody, for watching. Please share the show with everyone you can. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Captive Audience tomorrow night with Sunny.